Your world, your challenges, your faith. When faith within engages the world without, there's power. It's living life from the inside out.
College graduates are out looking for jobs in a market that was difficult for their older brothers and sisters, and in a world still recovering from the pandemic. Today on Family Life's Inside Out, we're talking about steps young adults might take to move toward the job of their dreams. I'm Martha Manikas Foster, and my guest is author, broadcaster, and podcaster Lisa Anderson. She directs Focus on the Family's outreach to young adults and manages the Boundless Ministry. Welcome, Lisa, to Inside Out.
Hey, it's great to be here, Martha.
I'm excited about what you can share with us since you work with people in the age group that we're talking about. Can we start with you just kind of setting the stage? What's your take on the job market right now? And is that job market opening up? You know, is the economy getting more favorable now that the pandemic is kind of winding down?
Yeah, it's kind of, still a little shaky because we're off of well over a year of the pandemic. And my audience specifically, which is younger adults, many of them new to the job market, lower on the totem pole. Many of them were furloughed, or maybe they had graduated from college and were just trying to break in and then couldn't. So it's kind of tricky, especially for the college graduate who, maybe is assumptive that, I'm going to get this great position and be able to just start out. Well, yeah, there are jobs out there, so that's encouraging, but you have to be creative in going after them. And, also, words for that person who may be mid-career change, because that is also something that's happening as well. And so really the information and the strategies can apply to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Well, to jump right in there, are the best strategies for getting a job any different now than they were for a graduate's parents when, the parents were first trying to get their first jobs out of college?
Yeah, there definitely is, and things have definitely changed. So first of all, let's kind of set the stage and have a couple of definitions here. So when we're talking about millennials, shockingly, actually, the oldest millennials are turning 40 this year. So we think of them as young adults, but really they're the ones out there who are, raising families and just trying to make ends meet and stuff. So that's going to be the millennial born about 1982 and after. And then Gen Z is coming up right up behind them, and that is where you're going to see your current college students and into those older teens. So definitely those younger 20-somethings and a little bit younger than that. Even those two generations are vastly different. And so I think what we're seeing now is a lot of different types of opportunities to break into the market. So, for example, rather than what the boomers excelled at, straight up crafting cover letters, resumes, doing that kind of beating the pavement type thing, you're having to be much more digitally savvy these days. So, massively utilizing social media networks, LinkedIn, getting networking down, figuring out different ways to get side experience that you can add, kind of some flavor to your opportunities. And so it's really a lot more about diversifying and bringing stuff to the table that might be that little added oomph. It's no longer just, I have a degree, I now have a diploma, give me a job. Now it's you're really having to sell yourself a lot more creatively.
And younger millennials and Gen Zers, is there something that, I realize generalizations don't benefit anybody, but in general that they bring, is there anything that kind of marks them that can be a benefit or maybe a detriment?
I would say absolutely. They kind of get a bad rap. And so we have to think of them in terms of just a different way of doing things. So, for example, I hire a lot of millennials. And yes, a detriment to where they're coming from is they're so used to being flexible in all things that they're going to be prone to hit up the job market or apply for a job. And the first questions they want to ask are, so do you have flexible schedules? Can I work remotely? Can I take my laptop and go up on the ski slopes and maybe do some work there? And boomers are just like recoiling, absolutely not. And so millennials have to adjust their expectations in that space. That said, millennials and now Gen Z are extremely scrappy and hungry. They've got a lot of great skills. They are quick learners. They are hopeful. They really are well-rounded in the way they're approaching jobs. And I always tell them, you look at those boomers, maybe who are the hiring managers now, they're not up on the latest technology. They are not on all the social media platforms. They're not understanding the newest ways of marketing and networking and infiltrating different markets. And so you show them how it's done, and you're going to earn your spot in the market itself.
I was listening to your podcast on this topic, and the idea of you as the person who's looking for a job, showing how you might make this person who's interviewing you job easier is
exactly.
It sounded like it was very appealing to the people you had on your podcast, as well as being a hopeful person rather than someone who comes in and says, oh, my last employer, that was terrible,
Absolutely. Those are my top two pieces of advice for younger folks who are trying to break in, is just you craft the position and sell yourself as someone who is a problem solver. My background's in PR. I used to do this when I pitched like TV shows. Lots of people just try to say, hey, I have this guest who has a book. Will you put him on your show? Well, that's not nearly as interesting as, let me take over your entire show. I will provide all the guests for you, including the ones with opposing opinions. I will give you the talking points. That's a producer's dream. So you tell this hiring manager how you're going to make their life easier. That's great. And then the second piece of advice is just, does this person want to do lunch with you? They should, because they're going to spend a lot of time with you. So you want to be that friendly team player who is outgoing, who is willing to pitch in, who's just a great person to be around.
So if you're just joining us, let me reset. If you're just joining us, you're listening to the Inside Out podcast on family life. I'm talking today with Focus on the Family's Lisa Anderson, who heads up the Boundless Ministry to young adults. Now, Lisa, perhaps you've already answered the bulk of this, but are there strategies that you suggest for young adults that have no experience and they're plugging away trying to get this job, but, they don't have a lot of things to list on that resume? And a second question, are your suggestions any different if the job seeker follows Jesus? Yes. Okay. So definitely some things that I think people overlook, especially those folks who don't have a specific position at the moment that they can go after, or maybe they're having a hard time landing an interview. So two things. First of all, and this actually the younger adults do well. So boomers and Xers, get in on this. The first thing is, take every single assessment that's out there. So if you haven't already done the Myers-Briggs, the Strengths Finder, the DISC test, you need to figure out what are you not only good at, like have an aptitude for, but what is your personality fit? What do you have the skills for? And then what are the positions that actually fit that? So me, Martha, it is no value for me to go around telling people that I'm going to be an astronaut. Like that is completely out of my reach. Okay, right.
Let's pick things that are attainable. Okay, so figure out what you're about and what you could probably grow a little bit in. So that's just great to be doing. The other thing that people vastly overlook is the power of the informational interview. This is especially great for younger adults who don't have a lot of connections. So what do I mean by that? I am saying you are going to find people at your church, your neighbors, your parents' friends, your creepy uncle, and you are going to ask them for 30 minutes of their time to take them out for a cup of coffee and pick their brains. And you're going to ask them, what career field are you in? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? How did you break into it? Have you found that you've grown in different skills as a result of being in it? And it is so no pressure for that person. This is just getting information from them. You're not saying, please give me a job or introduce me to all your VPs. You're just saying, I want some info. But these people know people who know people who know people, and you get on their radar, and you never know where some opening may come up, and they may think, hey, remember that girl who took me out for coffee, that friend of, or that daughter of Don and Kathy from my small group at church? That makes a big difference. And so do those informational interviews. And again, I'm thinking when you're talking about specifically those younger people and others of faith, I think of like Disney and other folks out there, the service industry, they are looking specifically now. This is so fascinating. I just read an article on this. They're looking at college Christian groups like Cru and InterVarsity to hire from because they know that these are kids with integrity, with a work ethic, with folks who are going to be positive and contribute. And so absolutely lead with that and trust God in the process and know that He's going to land you where He wants to get you because He is ultimately in control.
And if I understand correctly about the informational interview, this may help in two ways. One is so you know you're self what direction you might want to go in, right? You listen to the uncle as you're talking over coffee and you say, wait, this is just not an area I want to go in. I don't feel gifted and I don't feel interested. But also, if you're sitting down with someone, you may find, oh, this is much more interesting than I thought, and that person might turn around and remember you later. Is it hitting on all of those things?
Absolutely. I mean, again, relationship is so important. And it might not even be, maybe your uncle is an engineer and you have a liberal arts degree, but your uncle may work next to a department that's a group of writers. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's a team that's just 2 doors down from me, or they're just some cubicles over. And so, again, you never know who people might know, who they interact with, how, they might pick up on something that you say and be like, I just heard this team over there talking about how they need that kind of skill set. And so maximize it, put it out there. It's the same thing I say with folks who are dating. Like, if you want to be married, tell people you want to be married, because, the power of people who know and love you setting you up with great quality people is much better than you going online and shooting in the dark to try to find your soulmate. So it really does matter.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful advice. Now, there are people listening who have just graduated, or maybe they graduated during the pandemic, but they've been looking for a while for a job, and they're feeling discouraged. Do you have some words of encouragement for them?
I do. And the first thing is realize that every little inch that you make, every step that you take is going to matter. And so the intel that you're gathering, the people that you're meeting, the things that you're learning, they all are building up to something. And again, talking about things that you may not have 12 people say, oh, please come into my corporation and interview for this job. But there are a few ways that you can kind of worm your way in. And so here's another idea. The value of shadowing someone, or, picking someone or a position that you have and straight up calling them and saying, is there someone on this team that I could shadow for a day, or maybe I could volunteer? If you can give a little bit of time, you go in, you volunteer your services for a couple days or maybe a week. Again, it's kind of, when I was in my 20s, I did a lot of temping. And, there could be that is open to you as well. If someone is on maternity leave and they need someone to fill in and you're kind of like, hey, I could be that person. Again, that boots on the ground, in your face kind of presence in a department at a company is so valuable. So offer your services for free. And likewise, and this is obviously so important for younger adults, take advantage of internships. I already mentioned temp jobs, but I mean, usually we just had our slate of interns start. I'm always impressed when I find out, yeah, I already have 2 internships under my belt and I'm just diversifying and getting some different experience. And I'm like, well, good for you for not sitting home all summer and just eating Cheetos and mourning about the fact that you don't have a job.
Right.
You're out there going after it. And so I think that's good advice for everyone.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you so much for having the experience that you have and that you're sharing it with us. And thank you for joining me specifically here on Inside Out today.
Really a privilege. Thanks, Martha.
My guest has been Lisa Anderson. You'll find links to Focus on the Family's Boundless Ministry and to more about Lisa by going to familylife.org and looking for this Inside Out story under the radio tab. I'm Martha Manikas Foster with Inside Out on Family Life.